This lesson is about organization, the things you have to do before you can start working on your tracks. Now, when you finally get your AAF, it's late, of course, your deadline hasn't changed, and you feel an enormous pressure to get started. However, if you don't spend a little bit of time getting things together, making it the way it needs to be, finding the material that you need, you will eventually regret that decision. Everything will go wrong and you'll never work again. So what do you need to do to get started? Well, first of all, I made a template. Dialogue tracks. This is just a through F. You'll always have more than that probably, but hey, it's a demo, so get a grip. Work tracks, which we'll explain later, and a couple of tracks for your production sound effects. Now into that template, I imported the two AF tracks. Once they're imported, I simply made an in-sync copy up onto your dialogue track. These are the tracks we'll actually work on, not the AAF. Now, this is not just a pure copy. There's a couple of changes that we made. One of them is level. Now notice up here, I got rid of all the volume automation because we don't want it, we don't need it. Normally, you don't want to inherit the changes made by the picture editor. So here we go, the original with volume automation, the copy without. Now we have the basic setup more or less ready to start working. I've added a couple of things though. Notice over here I have a 1 kHz minus 20 reference tone, which sounds like that. Now the purpose of this reference tone is twofold. First, when you're monitoring through some sort of analog system, because sooner or later sound has to be analog, you can use this tone to make sure that everything's set correctly. But more importantly, every once in a while you'll need to make perhaps a bounce of these tracks or some little mix and send it to the supervising sound editor, the effects editors, the Foley people, the composer, and whatnot. They need to have some sort of clue what your reference level is, so this tone is very handy for that. The other thing I've added is a beep. That's the sync pop or the plop or whatever you want to call it. Different places call it different things. It occurs 2 seconds before the beginning of picture, and that's what lines up with the flash on the Academy or the SMPTE leader that precedes the reel. Now, as more and more films are distributed on DCP, labs are not only uninterested in a plop, but they really don't want them. However, while you're working, put the plop in. It helps to line up a track if you get something crazy out of sync. It also helps if you send let's say a bounce or a mix of your track to another editor and she doesn't have a machine that will read your metadata, she'll have to use the sync pop as a reference to line up. So anyway, put it there. Let's look now at a clip that we'll be working with for the next several lessons. This will give us an idea of what we're up against, and it's more fun than just hearing me talk. Now this demo is sort of ideal because there's only 2 channels in the AAF, which is extremely unusual, and each clip has only 1 channel. So it's a great way to see some basics about dialogue editing. So let's watch a bit.
What are you doing here?
Just here reading, that's all.
You're trespassing.
Excuse me?
This is private property here. The property line is just over there. Didn't you see?
Oh, I wasn't aware. I thought I was on the Wu estate still. I must have just wandered a bit too far.
Are you a friend of hers?
I'm her new housekeeper.
Oh, so you're the new maid.
I prefer the term housekeeper, but yes.
That's part of the clip. Now, in truth, even though it's noisy, it's a pretty good recording. There's good voice fidelity and they sound nice. There's one place where he has some distortion, but the primary problem that you'll have in cutting this and in mixing it is the imbalance between the 2 shots. He sounds one way, she sounds another way. What you're hearing is a combination of wind and traffic, which are some of the worst things you can come across because they're just nasty and they're everywhere. So this is what we have. In order to edit this and to make it mixable, we need to organize the tracks in a way that on each track of the editing machine, there is a common sound. Now, the best way to define what is a common sound is by camera angle or shot. In this clip, there are 3 different shots or angles. There's the wide shot, which you're looking at here. There is his close-up, and there is hers. That's it. Now, it's reasonable to assume that each time we come to her, she's going to sound more or less the same. So we want to start with putting all of her appearances onto one track. Now, if you look right here, you'll see that she is the B shot. That's 26B, take 3.
Wasn't aware.
There
I
she
thought I was
is.
on the Woo.
Notice that he
The property line is just over
is
there.
26A. So to start with, if you don't know anything about the scene, which at the beginning you never do, let's organize it by shot. So I'm going to get this organized, but not in front of you because it's unbelievably boring to watch somebody move tracks around. But I'll be back in a minute. We're back and we're more or less organized. Notice what I've done. I've put here's a B, 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 and so forth. Here's an A and an A and an A and so forth. And finally, here is the master shot, which only shows up once. Now, you might have noticed, there are these empty tracks between the A and the B and between the A and the master shot. Now, there's absolutely no rule about this. You don't have to do this. But I did this for a reason. I noticed when we were screening this clip that her shots from shot to shot sound different. In other words, she might sound one way in one appearance and another way in a different appearance. For example, listen to this.
I wasn't aware. I thought I was on the
As compared to this.
for the term housekeeper, but yes.
Notice that, this is a little low in volume, but notice too how this has all this tree rustle and all this traffic, and it's really nasty, whereas this is much smoother. So I want to move this down to this track here, down to dialogue B. And let's see if there's anything else that warrants being exiled like that one.
Are you the neighbor? I'm really sorry about
This one's pretty nasty too, so let's move it down here. And let's quickly listen to him and see if he has anything that needs to be moved.
The line is just over there. Friend of hers?
That's a little noisier. Let's see if we get worse.
That crazy bitch thinks she owns.
All right, for sake of discussion, sorry about the language. For sake of discussion, we'll move this down here. Now, do you have to do this? No, by no means. But it can make the mix easier. So we're basically ready to go. We can now start editing, which we'll do in the next lesson.